Welcome back to our quest. I hope you've all had some awakenings and some new awarenesses about how fear and discouragement can actually stop you from being fully alive and present in your life. Another thing in our lives that can block our awareness of our connection with our spirit is disappointment. The clue in the word disappointment is when there is actually a missed appointment. When we look at the areas in our lives where we get disappointed, you'll find that most of the times is when we miss our own expectations of how things should be, right? So we all set ourselves up and we get disappointed. And then we have to deal with that downward spiral energy. And again, you have to catch it before we get really sucked down into the basement. So imagine you're dating someone, and initially you could be saying to yourself, "Oh, I am sure he or she is the one." So then you get to know them, and you know this person is not the one. And you realize that you set yourself up. And then you feel this loss, this disappointment, because you have moved ahead in your expectations. Or you hire someone to work for you that you think is the perfect team member. And after a few weeks, you realize that working with them, that they really don't have it. So how can we protect ourselves from setting ourselves up for disappointment? We've already spoken about listening to all parts of ourselves and learning to access the spirit within. If we start making it into a habit to listen to our inner wisdom or calling in the light, we will start to notice the signs and start listening to our intuition. So we need to use our wisdom to know that we are setting ourselves up and moving ahead in our lives without projecting the scenario of how we want things to be. Now, there's a difference between being a positive creator and being a fantasy creator, where you set yourself up by imagining the most amazing scenarios despite all signs pointing to the opposite. Instead, we need to become positive creators, where we put the intention to have a wonderful experience, but we also allow the space for it to be what it will be. As my spiritual teacher always used to say, we'll see. Leaving room for it to be what it's going to be is very liberating, it's very wise, it's very freeing. Let me give you an example from my own life. I was invited to attend an event where my sister Ariana was being honored. I had invited someone to come with me as an escort that I had just met. I was very excited because I liked him. Well, 3 hours before the event, this gentleman called me up, was terribly apologetic, and said to me, "Agapi, I am so sorry. There's horrible traffic from LA to Santa Barbara, and I won't be able to make it on time." I remember feeling absolutely devastated about going to this event by myself. And I very quickly started to think of other people I could invite at the last minute. So I called a dear friend of mine and asked him to come with me to escort me. But the disappointment was really stuck in there. Later, the next day, I was with my spiritual teacher and I mentioned to him the incident. He said to me, "You have disappointment running in your life's theme, and you have to change the track so that things can start working out for you. You have to find the beginning of that thread, or when did it start? When did that pattern start?" Well, when I really looked back, I was very disappointed to witness the discord and the separation of my parents. They couldn't be happy together. My father was unfaithful to my mother, and he hurt her very deeply. and I couldn't do anything about it. I was very disappointed, and throughout my life, I kept attracting relationships that I would experience that disappointment again. Because in the beginning, I was very disappointed in what I thought was and is an ideal relationship. So it was a real belief that relationships don't really work and men disappoint you. So I kept creating that over and over again. But it wasn't until that experience brought it home to me that I started to look back and work with my divine spiritual nature to release that from my psyche, to release this embedded experience that relationships were going to lead to disappointment. I had to do a lot of forgiveness, forgiving myself for judging myself, forgiving myself for judging my father for his incredible unfaithfulness and the way he behaved and treated my mother. Forgiving God and life for setting it up in a way that it was hurtful. And as I got more into peace about what was my desirable event and my desirable outcome, I started to set my compass towards things that worked in my life. Now, it took me some time because, my friends, patterns like that are so embedded in us and they keep coming back till we clear them. But every time it came, it would be like recognizing an old friend and saying, "Oh, yes, I know that part. I'm setting it up again." So I started to outsmart it. I would literally yank myself and say to myself before my experience, "Agape, keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open here that you can create this in a very successful way rather than creating disappointment." So before I embarked into something, as you remember, I shared with you the story about the goddesses, how I was rehearsing negatively in my head. In the same way, I would say, rehearse it positively. That's not wishful thinking, and that's not fantasy. That's being a creator of summoning up your energy, your power to not collapse on yourself, to not set yourself up for disappointment. So, you have to be very aware. Start to bring your light, your awareness, your consciousness to everything in your life that you're doing. If you have a pattern like this disappointment, like I did, you have to really become masterful at recognizing the signs. Let's say you're about to go for an interview for a new job, and you might have such an expectation, and you say, "Oh, this is it. I want this job so much. It's the perfect job for me. I'm going to get this job." And you don't get the job. You've just again set yourself up. Instead of saying, "This is a really good job, and I would like that if it is for my highest good." Because in a way, there might be even something better, something that is even more appropriate and beneficial for you. I have found that the best key for letting go of disappointment is the courage to look at it straight in the face and take ownership and responsibility. Do you have this pattern where you project what you want to see in other people? I certainly did in my experience with my flaky date. I learned that I'm too quick to project what I want to see with other people. It's a certain lack of discernment and wisdom. Instead of stepping back, seeing people and situations as they are, we tend to live in wishful thinking. We put people on pedestals and we project qualities into people. Especially in romantic relationships, my friends, we can project the prince into the frog, and they might never turn into a prince. I wish this man to be so and so, therefore I will project the qualities into him that would make him so and so. But if we look at our disappointment from a higher perspective, they can become opportunities to learn how to make choices that can work for us. Aside from disappointment, another way in which we create patterns that don't serve us is by worrying. And worrying blocks us from the light, from that connection to spirit. We Greeks have a terrible habit. We worry a lot. As a matter of fact, we're so connected to worry that we actually have worry beads. We worry is just a habit. We worry about everything. We worry that we're going to run out of money, running out of time, that our plans aren't going to be successful. We're going to miss our plane. Worry robs you of your joy because you can never be present with what is. You can never positively create because worry is like a rumination. It's a hamster wheel going over and over and over again. When my mother saw us worrying, she would say, "Darling, change the channel. You have the remote in your hand." But it's easier said than done. So fortunately, there is a practice I want to share with you that I love that helps me deal with worry. So if you are one of those people that have a worry habit, here's what to do. Every 3 days, or every day if you have a big worry habit, take 10 minutes in your day, take a piece of paper and a pen, and write down everything that you're worried about. Then look at it and see what needs to be addressed. You can then identify what is a legitimate worry and what is not. For example, if you're worried about an event you're going to host that would not be well attended because you haven't sent out invitations and it's 2 weeks out, then that's a legitimate worry and you know what you have to do. If you're worried about missing a flight, that's also a legitimate worry. So you can plan to leave 3 hours earlier so you're not caught in traffic. So address your worry. And if you address it, do what you have to do. But if it is a rumination and a bad habit about something that you can do nothing about, or it's useless, let it go. And instead, start to program things going in the direction you want them to go. Move them from that lower energy of worry by, again, calling in your spirit, calling in the light, and move into an intentional, positive direction. Bring in more light. I hope you're catching the spirit. So here's how it works. I give myself the mental direction to be steadier, to take mental dominion of that lower energy. I ask to bring in more light. I never tell myself to stop worrying. Instead, I give myself a substitute for the worry and evoke a different space of calmness. It's really about moving from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system puts us into a fight or flight mode and prepares our systems for defense, whereas the parasympathetic nervous system relaxes our body and invites more breath, more spaciousness. Another component to this that is very overlooked is that we are all susceptible to each other's energies. So, you could be feeling really great, and then you go somewhere and you're sitting next to someone having a meeting with somebody that you are with, and then you're sitting next to somebody, or you might be with your significant other or your kid, and they're anxious about something, or they're worried about something. And then you start to feel anxious because we are all so super connected. I'm sure you've all experienced that. So I would really encourage you to learn to discern what is yours and what is theirs. Am I anxious because of something in my life? or am I anxious for what they are going through? So let us come into a prayer where we can become more attuned again to a deeper calmness. Dear beloved, let me attune myself to the deeper calmness and peace, to the higher vibration that is present in the universe, the cosmos, and everything that moves. I ask to know that beyond the storms, the hurricanes, the turbulence of the sea, there is a stillness and a calmness that is always present. Show me that so much of my anxiety and worry comes from my personal and the humanness of this physical world. May I please know that I am rooted in the Spirit and experience His presence. I see my roots being grounded on this earth and connecting to the heavens, so that there is convergence between my earthly self and my divine self. Although I may not know it or I feel it, I claim it, and I allow it to be present and transform any conditions that I have placed between my soul and my worldly self, and I have caused worry and anxiety to myself. I feel an invisible presence of steadiness walking with me every step of the way, and I start to feel the energy of peace so deeply. I hear the voice of wisdom inside of me, whispering words of safety, trust, and direction, and I allow myself to attune my being to this frequency of calmness. Anytime I bring worry upon myself, I remember that it's a product of the false self, and my true self only knows peace, calm, and serenity. In serenity, there are solutions, motivation, creativity, joy, and possibilities. I do not give over to this worry. I do not give over to the anxiety and restlessness. I return to the invisible force inside of me that is enveloping me, embracing me, and cheering me on right now. So be it. So, my friends, here's your practice for today. To kick the worry habit you may have and release your disappointments. Take 10 minutes. Every day, every other day, just start to make a habit. Take a piece of paper and a pen and write down everything that you are worried about. Then look at it, see what needs to be addressed, then identify what is legitimate worry and what is not. Regardless of whether you start acting upon it or not, it's important to name it. Then you take authority over it. And then think of a situation that disappointed you in your life. Try to explore where is it rooted and go into forgiveness of where the pattern originated. Know that you are not that pattern. That pattern is not you, and you can clear it. Then remember, clear, cut, disconnect any negative energies into the light. Always remember, be gentle with yourself, be compassionate with your process, be loving to yourself, because you are very, very lovable. And I'll see you next time.